The distress signal came in at 0347 hours, Galactic Standard Time, and changed everything. Admiral Sarah Chen was nursing her third cup of coffee in the command center of Luna Station when the communications officer, Lieutenant Rodriguez, suddenly straightened at his console. The young man's face went pale as he processed the incoming transmission. "Admiral," Rodriguez called out, his voice tight with disbelief. "We're receiving an SOS transmission on the emergency frequency. But ma'am, it's not from any human vessel." Chen set down her coffee and walked over to Rodriguez's station. The holographic display showed a complex waveform pattern unlike anything in their databases. "Are you certain it's a distress signal?" "Yes, ma'am. The mathematical pattern matches the universal distress protocol established by the Galactic Council." "But the source?" Rodriguez paused, checking his readings again. "The signal is coming from the Kepler 442 system, approximately 1,200 light-years away." The command center fell silent. Every officer present understood the implications. Humanity had only made contact with alien civilizations 5 years ago, and the relationship had been complicated. The Galactic Council had classified Earth as a Class X Deathworld and its inhabitants as Deathworlders, a designation that carried both fear and respect throughout the galaxy. "Put it through the translators," Chun ordered. The AI translation systems hummed to life, processing the alien language patterns. After several minutes, a synthetic voice filled the command center. "This is Captain Zektar of the Veilthrian science vessel Luminous Discovery. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. Our shields are failing. We have civilians aboard, including younglings. We cannot escape. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need immediate assistance. We are transmitting our coordinates. This is likely our final transmission." The message repeated twice more before cutting to static. Chen stared at the display for a long moment. The Veilthrians were one of the more peaceful species in the Galactic Council, scientists and explorers who had actually voted in favor of humanity's conditional membership despite the Deathworlder classification. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said quietly, "there's more. The signal is being broadcast on all emergency frequencies. Every species in the galaxy is going to receive this. And none of them will respond," Chen said grimly. She knew the statistics. The Veilthrians were located in what most species considered the Outer Rim, too dangerous for their fragile vessels and crews. The nearest Council response fleet was probably 3 months away at best. But humans weren't most species. Chen activated her direct link to Earth Command. "This is Admiral Chen, Luna Station. I need to speak with General Martinez immediately. Priority Alpha clearance." Within minutes, General Martinez appeared on her screen, his weathered face showing the strain of recent conflicts. "Sarah, what's the situation?" Chen quickly briefed him on the distress signal. When she finished, Martinez was quiet for a long moment. "The Veilthrians voted for us," he said finally. "They were one of only 3 species that supported human membership in the Council." "I know, sir. But it's not just about politics. There are civilians involved. Children." Martinez nodded. "I understand. But Sarah, you know what this means. The Kepler 442 system is deep in unexplored space. We'd be mounting a military operation 1,200 light-years from home with no support and no backup. If we commit to this, we go all in," Chen finished. "Total military response." "Exactly. And if we fail, Earth becomes vulnerable. We'd be spreading our forces thin across an impossible distance." Chen looked at the tactical display showing the location of the Veilthrian vessel. So far from home, so far from safety. But that was the thing about being human, sometimes you helped people not because it was smart, but because it was right. "General, with respect, we've been called monsters by half the galaxy. The other half calls us heroes. Maybe it's time we decided which one we want to be." Martinez was quiet for another long moment. Then he nodded. "I'll contact the president. But Sarah, if we do this, you'll be in command of the largest military operation in human history. Are you prepared for that responsibility? Chen looked around the command center at her crew, young faces, old faces, all united by the same stubborn human refusal to let innocent people die when they could do something about it. Yes, sir. I am. 2 hours later, the authorization came through. Operation Longshot was officially approved, and Admiral Chen found herself with more firepower at her disposal than any human had ever commanded. The response was unprecedented. Every available military vessel in the solar system was being mobilized. The Terran Fury, humanity's newest and most powerful dreadnought, would serve as the flagship. Accompanying it would be 12 heavy cruisers, 36 destroyers, and over 200 smaller vessels ranging from frigates to fighter squadrons. But the real surprise came from the civilian sector. Within hours of the operation being announced, shipping companies, mining consortiums, and even private yacht owners were volunteering their vessels. The message was clear: humanity was coming, and they were bringing everyone. Captain Marcus Webb of the Terran Fury met with Admiral Chen in the ship's main briefing room. The massive holographic display showed their planned route through space, a journey that would take them through 7 different star systems, some of them completely unexplored. The biggest challenge is going to be the jump sequence, Webb explained. We'll need to make 12 separate FTL jumps to cover the distance. That's going to strain our ships and crews. What about refueling? Chen asked. We're bringing the entire 5th Fleet's supply train. 400 cargo ships loaded with everything from fuel to food to medical supplies. But Admiral, once we make the final jump into the Kepler 442 system, we're committed. There won't be any turning back. Chen studied the tactical projections. The unknown hostiles attacking the Veilthrian vessel were a complete mystery. They could be pirates, another alien species, or something else entirely. Humanity would be jumping blind into a combat situation with no intelligence and no backup. Time to departure? 8 hours, ma'am. The crews are loading the last of the supplies now. Chen nodded. Captain, I want you to understand something. This isn't just about rescuing one alien science vessel. This is about establishing what humanity stands for in the galaxy. We're not just Deathworlders, we're the people who show up when everyone else runs away. Webb smiled grimly. Understood, Admiral. The crew is ready. As the Terran Fury prepared for departure, news of Operation Longshot spread across the galaxy. The reaction was immediate and divided. On the Galactic Council homeworld of Nexus Prime, Emergency Session 7749 was called to order. The chamber buzzed with the nervous energy of a dozen different species, all trying to process the implications of humanity's actions. Councillor Vexhai, a tall, crystalline being representing the Zephyrian Empire, spoke first. The humans have mobilized their entire military for a single rescue mission. This is either the most noble gesture in galactic history, or the most elaborate pretext for military expansion we've ever seen. The Veilthrians are respected members of this council, replied Councillor Mordun, whose turtle-like appearance belied his sharp intellect. If the humans succeed in this rescue, it will reflect well on all of us. And if they fail? Vexhai countered. If they arrive too late, or if they're destroyed by whatever is attacking the Veilthrians? The humans are powerful, but they're not invincible. The debate continued for hours, but no consensus was reached. The council would wait and watch, as they always did. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, the largest military fleet in human history was preparing to jump into the unknown. The first jump went smoothly. The massive fleet emerged from FTL in the Alpha Centauri system, regrouped, and prepared for the next leg of their journey. But it was on the third jump that they encountered their first problem. Admiral, called out Commander Sarah Kim from the sensor station. I'm detecting debris in our path. It looks like the remains of a battle. Chen moved to the tactical display. The debris field was massive, spread across thousands of cubic kilometers. But what was disturbing wasn't the size, it was the composition. Those are hegemony vessels, Webb said quietly. At least what's left of them. The hegemony was one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, rivaling even the combined might of the Galactic Council. Their ships were known for their advanced armor and shields. Whatever had destroyed these vessels had been incredibly powerful.
How many ships? Chen asked.
Difficult to tell with all the debris, but I'm reading at least 15 major hulls.
Possibly more. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. The hegemony didn't travel in small groups.
If there were 15 ships here, the original fleet had probably numbered in the hundreds.
Any survivors? Negative. The debris field is cold. This battle happened at least 2 months ago.
Chen stared at the tactical display. They were still 8 jumps away from the Kepler 442 system, and they were already finding evidence of a major conflict.
Whatever was attacking the Veilthrians had clearly been busy.
Admiral, Rodriguez called out from communications.
I'm picking up another transmission. It's faint, but it's definitely the Veilthrian distress signal. How is that possible?
We're still days away from their position.
The signal is being relayed through a series of automated beacon stations. It's an old emergency protocol. If a distress signal is received, the beacons automatically retransmit it to increase the range. Chen listened to the translation of the Veilthrian message.
It was the same basic content, but with some crucial differences. The ship was still under attack, but they had managed to find temporary shelter in an asteroid field. Captain Zektar was rationing power and life support, but they couldn't last much longer.
There's something else, Rodriguez added. The signal is dated. This transmission was sent 6 hours ago.
They're still alive, Chen said.
All right, people. We continue as planned. But everyone stays alert. We're not the only ones in this part of the galaxy.
The 4th jump brought them to the edge of explored space. From here on, they would be traveling through systems that no human had ever seen before.
The star charts were based on long-range observations and theoretical models, but the reality could be very different.
It was on the 6th jump that they encountered their first live enemy. The fleet emerged from FTL in the Kepler 186 system, a red dwarf star with 5 known planets. What they found waiting for them was a sight that would be burned into their memories forever. The system was filled with ships. Thousands of them, all of unknown design and clearly hostile intent.
The vessels were dark, angular constructions that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it.
They moved with a fluid grace that was both beautiful and terrifying.
Contact, shouted Kim from the sensor station. Multiple hostile vessels, bearing down on our position. I count. Admiral, I count over 3,000 enemy ships.
Chen felt her heart racing, but her voice remained calm.
Battle stations. All ships, prepare for combat. Launch all fighters.
The command was relayed throughout the fleet. 200 human warships suddenly came alive with activity as weapon systems powered up and fighter squadrons launched from their bays.
Admiral, Webb said, we're outnumbered 15-1. We should consider withdrawal. Chen looked at the tactical display.
The enemy ships were closing fast, and their formations suggested a level of tactical sophistication that was impressive. But she thought about the Veilthrian science vessel, hiding in an asteroid field, running out of power in air.
Negative, Captain. We came here to fight. All ships, engage at will.
The Battle of Kepler 186 began with a thunderous exchange of energy weapons. The human fleet, despite being outnumbered, had several advantages. Their ships were built for war, designed by a species that had spent centuries perfecting the art of killing each other. The weapons were more powerful, the armor thicker, and the crews more experienced in actual combat. But the enemy had numbers, and they had something else, a complete lack of self-preservation.
The dark ships threw themselves at the human fleet with suicidal abandon, using ramming attacks and self-destruction as weapons just as much as their energy cannons. The Defiant is taking heavy damage, reported Kim. They're requesting assistance.
Send the Wolverine and Banshee to support them, Chen ordered. And tell all ships to watch for ramming attacks.
These things don't seem to care about survival.
The battle raged for 3 hours. The human fleet fought with everything they had, but the enemy numbers were overwhelming.
One by one, human ships began to fall.
The destroyer Courageous was the first to go, overwhelmed by a dozen enemy vessels. The heavy cruiser Thunderbolt followed, its hull split open by a ramming attack that took out half the enemy squadron in the explosion. But the humans were learning. They adapted their tactics, using the enemy's suicidal tendencies against them. Fighter squadrons would draw the dark ships into attack runs, then break away at the last second, leaving the enemy to crash into carefully positioned debris or even their own allies. Admiral, Webb called out, "We're down to 140 ships. We can't keep this up much longer." Chen looked at the tactical display. The enemy had lost over 1,000 vessels, but they still had more than 2,000 left. The math was simple: humanity would lose this battle unless something changed. That something came from an unexpected source. "Admiral!" Rodriguez shouted over the noise of the battle. "I'm receiving a transmission from the Veilthrian vessel. Captain Zektar is saying, he's saying they found something. Some kind of control node for the enemy fleet." Chen felt a surge of hope. Can they access it? They're trying, but they need time. "And Admiral, Captain Zektar is asking if we can create a diversion. Something to draw the enemy fleet away from their position." Chen almost laughed. Here they were, fighting for their lives against impossible odds, and the aliens were asking for a diversion. "Tell Captain Zektar that we'll give him all the diversion he needs. All ships, new orders. We're going to make some noise." What followed was one of the most audacious military maneuvers in human history. The entire fleet, battered and bloodied, suddenly changed course and headed straight for the center of the enemy formation. It was a move that defied all tactical logic, but it was exactly the kind of crazy human strategy that had made them legends throughout the galaxy. The enemy fleet, caught off guard by the sudden offensive, converged on the human ships. Every dark vessel in the system turned toward the battle, leaving the outer regions of the system undefended. "It's working," Chen said, watching the tactical display. "The enemy is concentrating their forces on us." "Admiral," Kim reported, "we're down to 90 ships. Hull breaches on multiple vessels, including the Fury." Chen felt the deck shudder beneath her feet as another enemy salvo found its mark. Damage report. "Forward shields are down to 30%. We have fires on decks 7 through 12. But the main weapons are still operational. Then we keep fighting." The battle reached its climax when the Terran Fury found itself surrounded by over 50 enemy vessels. The massive dreadnought fought like a cornered animal, its guns blazing in all directions. But it was too much, the ship's armor was failing, and critical systems were going offline. "Admiral," Webb said quietly, "we need to abandon ship." Chen looked around the bridge. Her crew was still at their stations, still fighting, despite the fact that their ship was dying around them. These were her people, and she wouldn't abandon them. "Negative, Captain. We finished this fight." That was when the miracle happened. The enemy fleet suddenly stopped firing. Every single dark ship in the system simply stopped. They hung in space, motionless, as if waiting for orders that would never come. "What's happening?" Chen demanded. "I don't know," Kim replied, frantically checking her sensors. "The enemy ships are showing no activity. No weapons fire, no movement, nothing." Rodriguez was listening intently to his communications equipment. "Admiral, I'm receiving another transmission from Captain Zektar. He says they've done it. They've accessed the control node and shut down the enemy fleet." Chen stared at the tactical display. Thousands of enemy ships hung motionless in space, no longer a threat. The battle was over. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Cease fire. Repeat, cease fire. Begin search and rescue operations for any survivors." The next few hours were a blur of activity. Rescue teams scoured the debris field for survivors, while engineering crews worked to repair the most critical damage to the fleet. The human losses were staggering, over 60 ships destroyed, with thousands of casualties. But they had won. Against impossible odds, they had fought their way through the enemy fleet and given the Veilthrians the chance they needed to turn the tide of battle. "Admiral," Rodriguez called out, "Captain Zektar is requesting permission to come aboard.
He says he has information that we need to hear. Chen nodded. Grant permission.
And Rodriguez, arrange for a full honor guard. These people just saved our lives. An hour later, Captain Zektar materialized in the Terran Fury's transporter room. The Veilthrian was tall and slender, with pale blue skin and large, expressive eyes. He was accompanied by two of his officers, both showing signs of the stress they had endured. Admiral Chen, Zektar said, his voice carrying the musical quality common to his species. I cannot express how grateful we are for your assistance. You have saved not just our lives, but potentially the lives of millions throughout the galaxy. Captain, Chen replied, it was the right thing to do. But I have to ask, what exactly were those ships, and how were you able to stop them? Zektar's expression grew grave. They are called the Devourers. They are an ancient enemy that was thought to be extinct. But they have returned, and they are spreading throughout the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. He gestured to one of his officers, who activated a holographic display. The control node we discovered is part of a vast network. The Devourers are not just random raiders, they are a coordinated force with a single purpose, to strip the galaxy of all life. Chen studied the holographic display. It showed the location of dozens of control nodes throughout the galaxy, each one controlling thousands of Devourer ships. How many are there? We estimate over 1 million vessels, possibly more. They operate in fleets of 3,000 to 4,000 ships, attacking multiple systems simultaneously. The hegemony fleet you encountered was just one of many battles being fought throughout the galaxy. And the Galactic Council? Zektar's expression grew even more somber. The Council is paralyzed. They cannot agree on a response, and their individual fleets are too weak to face the Devourers in open battle. Many species are already preparing to evacuate their homeworlds. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. This was bigger than just a rescue mission. This was a war for the survival of galactic civilization itself. Captain, you said the control node was part of a network. Can it be used to shut down other Devourer fleets? Yes, but it requires precise coordination. The nodes are heavily defended, and they will adapt their defenses once they realize what we've done here. We may have won this battle, but the war is just beginning. Chen nodded. Then we need to get this information to Earth Command immediately. And Captain, I want you to know that humanity stands ready to help in any way we can. Zektar's large eyes showed what might have been surprise. Admiral, with respect, the Devourers are not just a threat to a few systems. They are a threat to all life in the galaxy. Your homeworld, your colonies, your people, they will all be targets eventually. I understand, Captain. But that's exactly why we need to stop them now, before they get stronger. The journey back to Earth took 5 days, with the fleet making emergency repairs at every stop. The news of the Devourer threat spread quickly through human space, and by the time they reached Luna Station, the entire solar system was mobilizing for war. Admiral Chen found herself in the unusual position of briefing the President, the Joint Chiefs, and the entire civilian leadership about an alien threat that most of them had never heard of just days earlier. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, standing before the holographic display in the Situation Room, we are facing the greatest threat in human history. The Devourers are not just another hostile alien species, they are a force of extinction that has already consumed entire star systems. General Martinez leaned forward. Admiral, what are our options? We have 3 choices, sir. First, we can fortify our borders and hope the Devourers don't reach us for several years. Second, we can evacuate Earth and our colonies to unknown space and hope we can find somewhere safe to hide. Third, we can fight. President Williams, a woman who had led humanity through the first contact crisis, looked tired but determined. What would fighting entail? Total war, Madam President. We would need to mobilize every military asset we have, along with significant civilian resources. We would be fighting not just for our own survival, but for the survival of every species in the galaxy. And our chances of success? Chen looked around the room at the faces of humanity's leaders. Unknown, ma'am. But I can tell you this, if we don't fight, if we don't at least try, then we're not the species I thought we were.
The debate that followed lasted 18 hours. Military leaders argued about logistics and tactics. Civilian leaders worried about the cost in lives and resources. Scientists tried to quantify the threat and calculate odds of success. But in the end, the decision was surprisingly simple. "We're Americans," President Williams said finally. "We're humans. We don't run from fights, especially when innocent people are in danger. Admiral Chen, you have full authorization to organize a coalition response to the Devourer threat." Chen nodded. "Thank you, Madam President. I won't let you down." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Admiral Chen found herself not just commanding the human fleet, but coordinating with alien species throughout the galaxy. The Veilthrians shared their intelligence about the Devourer control networks. The hegemony, despite their recent losses, contributed their most advanced warships. Even some of the more timid species provided support ships and supplies. But it was the human contribution that shocked everyone. Within a month, humanity had mobilized over 10,000 warships, ranging from massive dreadnoughts to nimble frigates. The civilian sector contributed another 15,000 vessels, cargo ships, mining vessels, even converted passenger liners armed with whatever weapons could be found. "How is this possible?" asked Ambassador Kethvar, the Galactic Council's liaison to the coalition. "Your species has been in space for less than 2 centuries. How can you field such a massive fleet?" Chen smiled grimly. "Ambassador, you have to understand something about humans. We've spent the last 5,000 years perfecting the art of war. When we decide to fight, we fight with everything we have." The coalition fleet that assembled at the edge of human space was the largest military force in galactic history. Over 50,000 vessels from dozens of species, all united under a single purpose: to stop the Devourers before they could consume the galaxy. The plan was ambitious to the point of insanity. The coalition would split into 25 separate fleets, each one targeting a different Devourer control node. The attacks would be coordinated to occur simultaneously, preventing the Devourers from reinforcing their positions. Admiral Chen would command the primary fleet, targeting the central control node that the Veilthrians had identified as the core of the Devourer network. It was the most heavily defended position, requiring the largest force and the most experienced commanders. Remember, Chen told her fleet commanders during the final briefing, this isn't just about destroying ships. This is about sending a message to the galaxy that there are some things worth fighting for, no matter the cost. The final approach to the central control node took the coalition fleet through the ruins of 6 different star systems. The Devourers had been thorough: planets stripped of their atmospheres, stars drained of their energy, entire civilizations reduced to debris fields. "This is what we're fighting against," Chen said softly, looking at the tactical display. "This is what happens when evil goes unchallenged." The central control node was located in the heart of a nebula, protected by a massive fleet of over 50,000 Devourer ships. The artificial structure was enormous, easily the size of a small moon, and bristled with defensive weapons. "All fleets, this is Admiral Chen. Operation Galactic Shield is now active. Begin your attacks." Throughout the galaxy, 25 separate battles erupted simultaneously. The coalition fleets, outnumbered but determined, threw themselves at the Devourer positions with everything they had. The battle for the central control node was unlike anything in recorded history. 50,000 human and alien ships faced off against an equal number of Devourer vessels in a battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. The fighting was brutal. The Devourers, realizing that their entire network was under attack, fought with desperate fury. But they were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before: humans who refused to give up, aliens who had found the courage to fight back, and a coalition united by a common purpose. "The Valiant is down," reported Kim from the sensor station. "The Thunderstorm is requesting assistance. Enemy breakthrough on Vector 7. Chen coordinated the battle from the bridge of the Terran Fury, her ship once again at the center of the fighting. Around her, the crew worked with practiced efficiency, their faces showing the strain of combat but their resolve never wavering. "Admiral," Captain Webb called out, "we're receiving reports from the other fleets. 16 of the control nodes have been destroyed. The Devourer network is starting to collapse." Chen felt a surge of hope. The plan was working. But they still had to complete their own mission. The central control node was the key to the entire network. All ships, concentrate fire on the control node's primary power core. If we can overload it, the entire structure will collapse. The coalition fleet converged on the massive structure, their weapons blazing. The Devourer ships fought desperately to protect their command center, but they were being overwhelmed by the sheer determination of their enemies. Power core is showing critical fluctuations, Kim reported. I think we're getting through their shields. Keep firing, Chen ordered. All weapons, all ships. This is our chance. The final moments of the battle were almost anticlimactic. The control node's power core, overwhelmed by the concentrated firepower of the coalition fleet, simply exploded. The massive structure disappeared in a burst of light that was visible from several star systems away. Throughout the galaxy, the Devourer fleet stopped moving. Without their control network, the individual ships were little more than debris. The threat that had consumed entire civilizations was ended by the combined courage of species who had chosen to fight rather than flee. Admiral Rodriguez called out, his voice filled with awe, "I'm receiving reports from all fleets. The Devourers have been defeated. The galaxy is safe." Chen looked around the bridge at her crew. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had saved not just their own species, but every species in the galaxy. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Operation Galactic Shield is complete. The Devourer threat has been eliminated. You have all shown courage beyond measure, and the galaxy will remember what you've done here. The journey back to Earth took several weeks, as the coalition fleet stopped to assist with rescue operations and help rebuild damaged systems. The gratitude of the alien species was overwhelming. Entire civilizations that had been on the brink of extinction were now safe. But it was the reception at Earth that truly moved Admiral Chen. As the Terran Fury approached Luna Station, she could see hundreds of ships waiting for them. Not just military vessels, but civilian ships, private yachts, cargo haulers, everyone had come to welcome home the heroes of the galaxy. Admiral Rodriguez said, his voice choked with emotion, "I'm receiving over 10,000 greeting messages from across the solar system. Everyone wants to thank us." Chen nodded, feeling tears in her eyes. They should be thanking themselves. This victory belongs to all of humanity. The debriefing sessions took weeks, but the conclusions were clear. The Devourer threat had been eliminated completely. The coalition had destroyed all 25 control nodes, and the individual Devourer ships had been either destroyed or captured for study. But more importantly, the galaxy had changed. The coalition that had formed to fight the Devourers had proven that different species could work together for the common good. The Galactic Council, previously paralyzed by bureaucracy and fear, had been revitalized by the example of courage shown by the coalition forces. "Admiral," President Williams said during the final ceremony, "I want you to know that what you've accomplished here goes far beyond military victory. You've shown the galaxy what humanity is capable of when we're at our best." Chen looked out at the assembled crowd, military personnel, civilian leaders, and representatives from dozens of alien species. They had all come to honor the coalition forces and to celebrate the dawn of a new era of galactic cooperation. "Madam President," she replied, "I think we've shown the galaxy what all of us are capable of when we choose to stand together instead of apart." The Galactic Council formally recognized the coalition's victory with the establishment of the Galactic Defense Force, a permanent military organization dedicated to protecting all species from threats like the Devourers. Admiral Chen was offered the position of Supreme Commander, but she declined, choosing instead to return to Luna Station and her original duties. "Why did you turn down the promotion?" Captain Webb asked her during their final meeting aboard the Terran Fury. Chen smiled. "Because the galaxy doesn't need one Supreme Commander. It needs leaders from every species, working together. That's the lesson we learned from this whole experience." 6 months later, Admiral Chen stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the traffic of ships moving through the solar system. Human vessels, alien vessels, and coalition ships all shared the same space, working together to build a better future. The distress signal that had started it all seemed like a lifetime ago.
A simple SOS from a Veilthrian science vessel had triggered the largest military response in human history. But it had also triggered something else, a transformation of the galaxy itself. Admiral Rodriguez called out from the communications station, "We're receiving another distress signal. It's from the Andromeda Galaxy. A species called the Kethmori. They're reporting some kind of dimensional incursion." Chen smiled. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of threats and challenges. But it was also full of species willing to help each other, to fight for what was right, and to answer the call when someone needed help. "Prepare the fleet, Lieutenant. It looks like we have work to do." As the coalition forces prepared for their next mission, Admiral Chen reflected on the lesson that humanity had learned during the Devourer War. They had been called monsters by some, heroes by others. But in the end, they had chosen to be neither. They had chosen to be human, flawed, stubborn, and sometimes reckless, but always willing to fight for those who couldn't fight for themselves. The galaxy was safer because of that choice. And somewhere in the Andromeda Galaxy, a species called the Kethmori would soon learn what it meant to have the Deathworlders as allies. The Terran Fury powered up its engines and headed for the jump point, followed by the largest fleet in human history. They were going to answer another SOS, because that's what humans did. They showed up. And they always would. 1 year after the Devourer War, the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. The Galactic Defense Force had established bases in every major star system, staffed by personnel from dozens of species. Trade routes that had been abandoned due to piracy were now safe and prosperous. Scientific expeditions ventured into previously unexplored regions of space, protected by coalition escorts. The humans, once feared and mistrusted, had become the most respected species in the galaxy. But they had also become something else: teachers. Human military academies welcomed students from across the galaxy, sharing the lessons learned from centuries of warfare on Earth. Admiral Chen, now serving as director of the Galactic Defense Force Academy, often told her students about the distress signal that had started it all. "Remember," she would say, "it's not about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about being the ones who answer the call when someone needs help. That's what makes us who we are." The lesson had been learned, and the galaxy was better for it. When the next crisis came, and there would always be a next crisis, the galaxy would be ready. Not because of superior technology or overwhelming firepower, but because of the simple human concept that some things were worth fighting for. And in the deep reaches of space, automated beacons continued to broadcast the same message on all emergency frequencies: "If you need help, call the Deathworlders. They will come." They always did.